Did you know that the Marine Corps is the smallest branch of the U.S. military? It makes up less than 18% of them. And of that 18%, only 9% or so are females. So that means of the population of America, which is about 333 million people, female Marines only make up about 1.5%. So if you know a female Marine, count yourself as very lucky indeed. That includes former Marines as well. And that is what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm really excited to get to talk to you today because about some of my experiences of being in the strongest and, in my opinion, the best branch of the military. Obviously, I am biased on this opinion. But anyway, hello, I am Renee, and this is Human Woman Renee, where I share stories that are unfiltered and absolutely vulnerable for you all to enjoy and hopefully learn something from. This story is about my life as Corporal Boucher and my time in the Marine Corps. So let me tell you first what you are actually watching on your screen. And it isn't just my amazing dance moves. Those are included here for your entertainment at no extra charge. Believe it or not, I have no formal training. Anyway, this is my garage and the house we rent. It may not actually look that bad at the moment to start with, but there were some improvements I needed to implement. For instance, I needed to be able to plug in all of my things. So my car has a plug, my kid's bike, and the chargers for various tools, my refrigerator, and we only have 2 plugs in the whole garage, so I had to make all that work. Also, when I did this clean out, my stepdaughter was between houses. We were storing some of her stuff. I took it all out of the cardboard boxes they were in because they were falling apart, and I replaced them with plastic bins in this video. So I definitely like how it turned out, and now I feel like there's more space available than before. If you're interested, there's after photos at the end of the video, but I actually forgot to take before photos. So try to remember what it looked like right now. Also, I'm still searching for a better camera crew. So at the moment, the shots aren't great, and the battery died a few times, and I ran out of storage space in my SD card. But I'm getting better at this whole thing. Anyway, all right, so let's go. Let me tell you about my experience as a female Marine. So for the details to make sense, you need to know that I was a Marine between the years of 2001 and 2005. This was a very pivotal time in our history. I actually ended up deploying to Iraq twice. I'll be breaking out this video into 4 separate parts. So if you want to skip ahead, the chapters are in the description below. First, I'll talk about why I joined the Marine Corps in the first place. Then I'll talk about why I got out. Then I'll talk about some of my more impactful experiences as a Marine. And then finally, I'll talk about what I would tell others who are thinking about joining the Marine Corps. All right, so here we go. Why did I join the Marine Corps? The easy answer is I had to get out of my current situation at home. The longer answer has a few reasons. So what do I mean exactly by getting out of my situation? Well, this happens to be a story for a whole other video that I'm planning, but I was basically in a house where I was living with sexual abuse. I'll be doing like a whole series on my personal survivor story and my life growing up with sexual abuse. So if you're interested for that, look for that to come out soon. Anyway, what about college? Why didn't I go there? Simply put, I was kind of lazy. I was a good student. I had straight A's. My GPA was above a 4.0. However, I didn't really like school, and my parents didn't have any money to send me, and I was absolutely opposed to writing essays to get scholarships. So, what are you going to do? I also didn't know it then, but I really wanted to leave where I was growing up. And staying at home and attending even a community college was not even like a question. So people ask me, why the Marine Corps though? They're known as like the hardest branch. Did you just hate yourself? No, not exactly. My ASVAB score was high enough I could have gotten into the other branches. And when I did decide on the Marines, they actually told me I could be in any job I wanted to be in. So why not choose the Army or the Air Force or Navy or something, right? Well, in high school, I went to, we had a Marine Corps JROTC program. That's a Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. I'm not even sure if high schools even do this program anymore, but back in the day, kids, before the internet was even a thing, we had a lot of choices for electives like shop, home ec. You could fix cars. You could learn how to build things. You could also be in ROTC. So this program that basically taught kids how to learn and act like they were in the military. My school was the only one in our area that was Marine Corps. So the others were like Army and Air Force and stuff. But I learned a lot about the Marine Corps, and I thought, well, I already know the history and I know how to march, so I'm just going to go with what I know. Plus, funny kind of story here. My recruiter, who was like very active in our school, he came to like a lot of ROTC events, and he was in our classroom like on a regular basis. He'd heard somehow I was talking to recruiters, and he spotted me in the hallway one day, and he confronted me, and he literally slammed me into the lockers. And he was like, he had heard that I was talking to the Army recruiter, and he was like, you better not join the effing Army. And he didn't really care if I like wanted to join the Navy or the Air Force, but like the Army was a huge no-go. So, you know, if you didn't know it already, Marines are very prideful, especially when it comes to being compared to the Army. So yeah, that helped me push me in that direction too. Another reason that I, at that time, decided to go in the Marine Corps was I had just lost my high school sweetheart the year before. He died. He was a senior and I was a junior. We went to the same school, obviously. We'd been together since my freshman year, and our plans were to get married. We were going to join he was going to join the Marines, and I was going to work for his mom at a nail salon she owned. I even got my license to do nails while I was in high school and everything. So I was like, we were like prepared for that. But obviously, after he died, that messed me up at the time. But since we could no longer be married, I didn't want to go like do work doing nails, and I thought this would be a really good way to honor him too. So I plan on talking about this as well in another video. So yeah, I know that lots of people like grow up actually wanting to be in the military, specifically the Marines, but I mean, I wasn't one of these people. I didn't have these dreams. I was just doing what like at the time seemed like the easiest thing to do to get me furthest away. And the military seemed like a really smart decision at the time because they offered a lot of benefits that just aren't really afforded to most people who are just graduating high school. And ultimately, I wouldn't have done it any differently now, looking back. The pride I have for my time in the Marine Corps is overwhelming. So, all right. Then after my enlistment was over, why did I decide to get out? This too has multiple reasons. The first is by the time I was ready to get out of the Marine Corps, I had gotten married, I had my first kid, and I'd already done 2 tours in Iraq. And if I had re-enlisted, they were going to send me back there when she was 365 days old. This is literally what they told me. I didn't really have a strong support system, or any support system for that matter. And my husband had just gotten out a few months prior, and so I decided I would just get out too, and I would get a job. Sometimes then I would regret this decision. Like, I would actually miss being a Marine, but again, now looking back, that was probably the smartest thing for me to do at that time. I have no idea how it would have impacted my life with my family if I decided to stay in for another 4 years. So again, I wouldn't have changed that decision for anything. I probably wasn't as grateful then either as I am now for my time in, but yeah. I learned some very valuable skills while I was part of the Marine Corps, and I've kept those with me. All right, so here's the part where I'm going to talk about some of my most impactful experiences while I was in, and this part was actually really hard for me to boil it down to just a few, so kind of like bear with me, please. If you would like for me to share more specific stories about particular topics and things that I did in the Marine Corps, let me know in the comments. Because I can plan on more videos about like what it's like to be a Marine, female Marine especially. I also want to take a moment right now and give you a recommendation. If you want kind of a funny spin on what life is actually like in the Marine Corps, it's actually funny because it's so true. But there is this former Marine. He wrote. I don't know if he still writes it, but he wrote this comic strip called Terminal Lance, and he's published a few books. And I've linked some of those books down in the comments. So just note that if you click these links, I will be earning a very small commission on those sales. So thank you. Anyway, back to my story. When my recruiter gave me this book, after he said I could be anything I wanted, he gave me this book of jobs, and he told me to look through it and said I could choose anything that I wanted to be. And the first thing I chose, barely looking through it, was a truck driver. Which is hilarious, because why would that be the thing that I wanted to do most? Mostly because I was a redneck. I don't know. But anyway. Well, he came back to me a few days later with bad news and informed me that I actually could not be a truck driver because I was too short. I am only 5'4", and to qualify, I need to be 5'7". So there went that dream. Funny thing is, I actually ended up driving trucks in the Marine Corps, and I actually taught people how to drive trucks. And I was one of the first female Marines to learn how to drive the new, at that time, MTVR 7-ton, which was like a huge truck. But anyway, I digress. So I went back to the book to figure out like what my future held. Now here's the part that I actually wish I had gotten some like wisdom from my recruiter, because I based my decisions solely on the pictures in that book, like not actually thinking about what I would do with the skills that I learned after I got out. So that sucked. I really kind of wish I would have chose something better, but anyhow. I looked through the book and I found this picture of these Marines. They were like in an office setting, typing on computers. They were wearing their deltas, which is, if you're a Marine, you'll know, is a very like nice dress uniform, not the like daily camis that you normally associate to the military. So yeah, I chose that. And so the MOS, or military occupational specialty, I chose, by the way, the military is full of acronyms, was communications, which sounded good at the moment. Who knew? Let me just tell you that being in comms wasn't anything like that in the picture. Not at all. I never wore my deltas, not a single day. I wore camis every day. And what I actually ended up doing most of the time was running cables, hooking up phones, and digging holes. I actually drove a ditch witch, so kind of proud of that too. But anyway, and often like comms people are the first target the enemy will take out, so that we can't communicate with each other. So there's that. Even though it turned out that I was actually really good at it, and it's kind of a joke, but some considered me to like be like a Yoda of troubleshooting. Those are their words, not mine. I did have a knack for like fixing things that others like couldn't seem to do. But before I even went to comm school, I had to go to boot camp, right? And I think the one story that you'll find with all Marines is boot camp itself. Like every Marine has boot camp stories. They're all pretty much the same, but we love to share them nonetheless. Like it gives us hours of pleasure just talking about boot camp. So Marine Corps boot camp is the longest of all the services. It's 13 weeks of hell. And when I went, it was full on summertime. I went in late May, graduated in August. And out of the like 60 something female Marines that came into my platoon when I started boot camp, we had maybe 50 something make it through. So yeah, not everybody like is gonna make it through that whole time. we're known as kind of like one of the biggest and baddest branches, and some of it has to do with our boot camp, but we are also known for being like skilled in arms, right? We're the first to fight. Unlike other service branches, every Marine will train and qualify with a rifle before they can graduate. A term you may hear like is every Marine is a rifleman, and this is true. So like I even met this girl during boot camp that had been there for over a year trying to qualify on the rifle range. Like I'm going to repeat that. She was at boot camp for over a whole year because she couldn't shoot a gun. I have no idea if she actually ever graduated. I never saw her again. But the week that I was on the range, she had been there a year already. So I actually Googled what it means to qualify on the rifle range, just, to compare it to other services or whatever. But here it says, quote, recruits must fire rounds in slow fire and rapid fire from 4 shooting positions at ranges of 200 to 500 yards. They must also start in a standing position and quickly move into a kneeling or prone position when targets appear. The Marine Corps also offers an annual rifle qualification that tests marksmanship skills in a combat-centric environment. Shooters may engage moving targets, artificial support, and targets while moving. After completing the ARQ, Marines are awarded one of the 3 Marine Corps marksmanship qualification badges: expert, sharpshooter, or marksman. Okay, end quote. When I left boot camp, I was a sharpshooter. But then, as I said, we requalify every single year. And every year after that, I was expert. So I'm kind of a badass when it comes to shooting guns. Anyway, but seriously though, like boot camp wasn't like a joke. It was no joke at all. Like we had to do some serious stuff, like the gas chamber. Oh God, I almost thought I was gonna die because they put me in a pool and made me wade in my camis, in my boots for 5 minutes without touching the wall. And I was not a good swimmer, like at all. And I don't actually know how I made it through that 5 minutes. It was literally the longest 5 minutes of boot camp. I swallowed like half of that pool. But fortunately, since they allowed me to do the backstroke, I was able to like make it across the pool for that part. But thank God I never had to do swim qual again because, oh my God, that was horrible. Anyway, if you like want to watch a really good movie that shows boot camp, and I would recommend the movie Full Metal Jacket. Like this movie was set during the Vietnam era, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. I don't know when the last time someone actually killed themselves in boot camp, but like I said, I did see a lot of women drop out because they couldn't cut it. They would basically refuse to train, and they wouldn't move. And even when they were yelled at, they would just stay in their bunk, and they just eventually just got sent home. So anyway, during boot camp, they tear you down until you are nothing. They even take away your identity. You're no longer I and me. Instead, you are this recruit. You are basically the scum of the earth, put there for the drill instructor's amusement. And sometimes they played games. Actually, not sometimes. All the time. They played games. And then, after they tear you down, they build you back up into this mold of a Marine. A disciplined, war-fighting, $100,000 maniac that will kill anything you ask it to. And at the end of boot camp, you must pass the final test, which is called the Crucible, which is a 3-day field march where they basically starve you and force you to work as a team with your squad to get through different courses designed to simulate war. And finally, after you're done with all this, you can finally call yourself a Marine and are handed an Eagle Globe and Anchor, otherwise known as an EGA. Again, we love acronyms. This is usually a really emotional time for Marines. Most of them cry, if you didn't know, because you finally made it. You did all this hard work and now you can call yourself a Marine, and you kind of get like an identity back. You know, you can have a rank and a name. But also after boot camp, like before you're sent to your school to learn your MOS, you're sent to Marine Combat Training, or MCT, unless you're going to be a infantryman, and then you just do like a longer version of MCT. So obviously I didn't do that. But that, again, is another whole month of nothing but training for war. This, too, is unlike other armed services. Like, I don't think that they send every single one of the people in Army to a month of war training after boot camp is already over, before you go to your job. So anyway, when I was in MCT, that was when 9/11 happened. Obviously, September 9/11, 2001. And this is like what we knew, like, okay, like all this training that we'd just been through is actually about to mean something. They had brainwashed us pretty well, you know, to be excited about the prospect of actually killing people. So yeah, there that is too. If you want to hear more about boot camp specifically, though, let me know again in the comments, and I'll be sure to make some videos talking about specifically boot camp. So after boot camp and MCT and your school, you're finally sent to your unit you're assigned to. For me, this was the 1st Marine Division, located at Camp Pendleton. So I was actually able to pick like which location I wanted to go to from the recruiter's office. And I really loved the idea of living in Cali, so I went to the West Coast. You know, thank you, West Coast rap. But yeah, I mean, kind of, I wish I would have gone to Okinawa. So if I had that to do over again, I would, because you only do a year and you're young, and go to Okinawa. That's all I'm saying. Also, a little tidbit. I was made a PFC right out of boot camp since I had experience in ROTC, so that was kind of cool. And they automatically give you a Lance Corporal after PFC. And I stayed a Lance Corporal for like the entire time until like the last 6 months before I got out. So I definitely kind of relate to that Terminal Lance comic vibe. Anyway, back to the story. It was like a year and a half after 9/11 before we actually started to deploy to Iraq. Even though the war in Iraq actually was like very little to do with the terrorist attack, but you know, whatever. By the time that happened, I'd already like served as an MP, or a military policeman, for a short time. I'd been assigned there, and I'd also been assigned to an infantry battalion called 11th Marines, who they're the unit that shoot the big howitzer guns, and they needed help with their switchboards, so off I went to help them. And at that time, women were not seen in infantry battalions. Now, however, we have equal rights, so that's cool. MP duty was crazy too, and that's where I did OC training, which is oleo resin capsicum, but that's basically pepper spray. And I could talk more about this, but if you look at a few videos on YouTube, you can see Marines going through the OC training, and it's crazy. Like, Marines are crazy as hell, man. Like, we love this shit. I don't know why. For anyone that is wondering, though, pepper spray is way worse than the gas chamber. So my husband deployed first as part of the forward party, and that was around the end of November 2002. They were literally supposed to be home by Christmas, but they weren't. The rest of our unit got sent out in February of 2003. Now, mind you, this is the very beginning of the Iraq War. It wasn't even called a war yet. It was still called an operation at that point. So if you want a good idea of what Iraq was like at that time, I suggest you watch the show on HBO called Generation Kill. There are so many things in that show that actually really happened. Like, we all thought J-Lo had died. You know, we didn't have a reliable internet at the time, and we believed whatever we heard through the Lance Corporal Underground, which is usually a reliable source of information, but in this case, she wasn't dead, so that didn't work out. I feel like this is becoming like a video of movie recommendations, but another movie you should watch if you're interested, if you want to see some accurate Marine Corps wartime stuff, is Jarhead. And I know this movie gets a lot of bad rap, but it shows the Marine Corps mentality. The language we speak, and they talk about what it's like to burn the shitters, which I also know a lot about. So it also shows a lot of good examples in that movie of like classic fuck games, which I'm going to have to bleep out. Anyway, none of these can show you exactly how it was for me, though, because I wasn't in an infantry battalion. I was a woman, and that wasn't the thing. I was actually in a headquarters battalion. I was in a comm platoon, and my job was phones and switchboards. So, however, there was a point during my deployment where I was again assigned to an infantry battalion. This time it was the 7th Marine Regiment, or RCT 7, as they were known in Iraq. Again, they needed help with their switchboards, so I came. Anyway, real life isn't a movie, and I do have quite a few stories from Iraq. So again, let me know if you want to hear about those. All right, so we started in Kuwait and made we were there in like Kuwait like a few weeks, and then we started making the forward march north up into Iraq, like following right behind the infantry units as they clear the area. So we would set comms up. Like the forward march took several weeks, but we would take these like short pauses, setting up camp, setting up comms, and then tearing it back down, and then moving a little bit, and then setting it back up, and then breaking it down, and setting up comms, like over and over again. We got it's like really good thing we trained to do this, because we got pretty good at it. Some pauses were like a few hours long, and some lasted weeks. I remember we were at Adiwania for like 2 weeks, which was like a really long time at that point. We never knew like what was going to come next either. Like just sitting around waiting for orders. Like you could be in the middle of chow and they could just be like, okay, time to pack up, go. And like you would get everything torn down, packed up, and ready to go in like less than an hour. Like we were good at this stuff. But anyway, that lasted like a few months until we ended up in Babylon, where we stayed for like 4 months. This is when I actually got like a real shower. Up until this point, we had been wearing our mop gear. I think it was, over 45 days we stayed in mop gear. We didn't have showers. We didn't have like bathrooms. The best you could get was like some baby wipes, hopefully, if someone sent you some. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. They kept telling us, we're going to go home in 2 weeks, and that the army was coming to occupy our position. But like it seemed like 2 weeks would like never come. They kept saying like 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And then we just never, like finally we got to go home. I was in Babylon, I think I said for like 4 months. But anyway, after like 9.5 months total, we did go home. But we were only there for a little bit to celebrate, because like 4 months later, we went back. We got all our gear cleaned and, barely got rested up before it was time to just head right back. So anyway, this time was kind of different though. Instead of like making the march forward, we'd already like, cleared out all the enemy, and now we're just like an occupying force. And we stayed mostly at one camp. It was called Camp Blue Diamond. It was located in Aramati, and we were like fired upon like mortars like all the time, like daily mortar attacks. And we lost a lot of good Marines who just died from like being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, that has caused me a lot of like long lasting scars. But I mean, I was like actually injured from an incoming mortar round. Never saw my Purple Heart though. So even though the person I was with at the time did get one, but that too is like a whole other story. Anyway, we were there for like 8 times this time. I mean, 8 months this time. And at the end of this video, there's a picture of me during this deployment. So if you stick around to the end, you can see it. I actually have a lot of pictures. I don't know. The other important event that I thought I would mention here was getting married. So this wasn't like some love story. We only got married because we wanted to move out of the barracks and get the extra pay. Now, I wouldn't suggest this, but for at the time, this seemed like a really good idea. Like, we didn't want to live in the barracks, and so we just did that. I'll probably make another video talking about that in depth, but we basically stayed together for far too long for the wrong reasons, but at least we made 2 beautiful kids together, so that's good. And if you've made it this far in the video, I really, really appreciate you watching. This is going to be the part of the video that I'm going to speak directly to those people thinking about joining the Marine Corps. So if you're thinking about joining the military, I will tell you there are a lot of pros to be had. There are great benefits. You get lots of leave, you get health, you get dental, you get VA disability for the rest of your life if you're ever injured, hopefully not. You get free college even after you get out. You're going to make lifelong friends that you will meet. You will meet so many people that you will come to love that come from different walks of life with different looking faces and different backgrounds, and they will become your family. But there are obvious like cons as well. You know, they don't call it the suck for nothing. Everybody can't do this job. There are plenty of examples of this in movies, and sometimes it really effing sucks. In fact, while I was in, I thought it sucked more than it didn't. After looking back, though, I have a lot of really good memories. Anyway, I would also, look at the political temperature of the country before you join, because like once you are in, there isn't any getting out, and you never know when this country is going to be in another war. So be sure that you are actually ready to give your life in defense of this country. I signed up before 9/11. I was not thinking about another war. You can die for real, and you will see others die for real. So just be ready for that. Another thing is, no matter what you end up doing in the military, it's going to end up changing you. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I think I got a little bit of both. I do plan on telling you some stories in future videos of how I've been coping with and healing my PTSD from this time and others. I knew a lot of Marines that came home and they couldn't take it and they killed themselves. In fact, statistics say that 20 veterans a day commit suicide. 20. It's a lot. Anyway, finally, the one thing I'll tell you is try to think beyond just boot camp. I know for me, like that was the foremost thought on my mind when I enlisted at 18 years old. Will I make it through boot camp? But in the grand scheme, that was only 13 weeks of over 4 years of my total life. And I'm 41 years old now, and my time in the Marine Corps, makes up only about 1/10 of my overall time on Earth. Yet it was one of the most impactful of all. So just, think about that for a minute when you think about, am I going to make it through boot camp? Another thing is ask your recruiter lots of questions. I wish I would have talked to my recruiter more. I wish I would have asked more questions, especially about what jobs could be useful after I got out. And finally, to anyone who served, I want to thank you. And to those who want to, I tip my hat in respect to your decision. Again, there are so many more points that I can mention, such as sexual harassment and, other pros and cons that, I will be glad to share in future videos. So let me know how you feel about that in the comments as well. So that's it. One more personal note. I would like to apologize to all of you for putting this video out late. I know I promised to upload on Tuesdays, and this is Friday. But as this channel is about being human and vulnerable and real, I will tell you that this past week got very lifey, and it got in the way of my upload schedule, and I still have my regular full-time job, and who knew that editing videos was basically some form of torture. But thanks for watching. Subscribe and share if you like this video. Talk to you later. Bye.